how everybody's doing? Good? You're always supposed to know your audience. So how many people here went out last night? Okay, so I have to keep you guys awake. How many people arrived here today on a red eye? Me? You too? All right, good. How many people in this room have ad blocking software? How many people feel well versed in ad blocking? Kind of, sort of? Okay. Today's going to be a pretty informative session. So Jonah-Kai, I'm with Tune. I'm not going to give you the pitch on who we are. If you want to learn about us, you can check us out at tune.com. I have a lot of slides to go through, but I'm the marketing director there. I've been there for over 3 years. Today, I'm going to kind of jump in on some research stats that we've been doing. So we've been doing, this is my third talk on ad blocking. Did it in Toronto. We had Postback last week in Seattle where we brought about 1,000 of our customers and partners and talked about it. So I had a really good panel there, and I'm going to kind of weave in stuff like that. But it's going to be a pretty informal session. I'm very open, so if you have questions, please raise your hand. I like to kind of get dialogue going. We do have a full report, so we did do an ad blocking report. We surveyed a lot of people. I'll talk about it there, but you can get it at tune.com/resources. It's about 20 pages long, lots of graphics, lots of good information. It'll kind of rehearse some of the things I'm talking about now, but if you want to get more information, check out there. Today, we're going to cover what is it, why do we care, kind of talk about some of the industry movements. I'm going to make everybody smart, so I want everybody to walk away with at least 1 or 2 things that they can take away with this. What to do, kind of some tips and tricks and things that you can do as advertisers and or affiliates or people that you're working with out there. Good? Am I covering something that everybody wants to learn? Am I missing anything? Slides won't change, but why do we care? So to date, what we've seen is about 25% of people have downloaded ad blocking software. What we do know is that in Europe and Asia, it is much higher. It's typically around the 20 to 30% range. Anybody know why that is? Nobody wants to take a guess? Take a guess, somebody.
Why it's higher in Asia?
Why?
No, I'm asking what the question is.
Why is it higher in Asia and Europe?
The tourists, they don't trust.
Tourists? Tourism?
No, I mean tourists, they don't trust ads.
They don't trust ads?
Yeah, I'm from Europe websites.
Shitty websites? Wait, not shooty websites? Yeah, any other ones? Those are all good reasons. The #1 reason why is that in these countries predominantly, you have to pay for your data. And so what we know is that a lot of the ads, especially ones that can come through on mobile websites, they can range anywhere from up to 16 megs. If you block that, you can get those units down from the publishers down to like 6 megs. So if you're in a country where you're an emerging market and you're paying for data rates, we see it a lot heavier presence there. Another thing that we kind of like to think about, what I like to see here is that we really see it in 2 things, right? It's privacy and really ad experience. Like those are the kind of breaks down to the 2 reasons that people block ads is because they want something private and they want to be able to have a good experience when they're surfing the web. This data comes from a company called Shine On. They're based out of Israel. I'll talk about them in a second, but they're a very interesting company that's taking ad blocking in a different way. There's different ways that people are doing it, and I'll talk about some of those variations, but this data comes from Shine. Interesting thing, as of I think this was 2 or 3 weeks ago I pulled it, these are the amount of ad blocking apps on either, I think it's 33 on Android, or 33 on iOS and 30 on Android. So over 30 on each platform, ad blocking software that people can download to try and block the ads, which in about 2 years ago, we saw anywhere from like 3 to 4. So significant increase. Shine.com. So an interesting one about Shine.com. So we did this panel last week at Postback. We had some network service, network telco providers there, and they're actually starting to get in the game. Shine.com is based out of Israel, Tel Aviv. They're doing a test right now in the UK where they're actually at the telco level blocking the ads from the provider, right? So if you think about the actual source where you're getting if we have all of our little phones here, they're blocking it at the telco level. And they have some interesting ways that are trying to get people to push through. But just to kind of give you an idea what the experience looks like at the telco level, this is mobile web, and this is app. Anybody know the difference between blocking ads at these different types of levels? I'll talk about it a little bit later, but it's much harder to block them at this level than it is at this level. Because at the mobile web, you can actually look at where the ads are being pushed from, whether you're sourcing from a DoubleClick or whatever your ad server is. Whereas at this level, because you're in-app, it's a lot harder to experience, but Shine has the ability to do that. So it's a very controversial, they're doing a test right now through August. I think they have 30 million subscribers that they're testing. They're going to do a different type of experience to kind of see how people respond to that.
So did you mean that Shine's working with a
telco provider? Yep, that's one telco provider. I forget the name of it. You can find it. It's on their main website. Yep, it's also blocked.
Is it orange?
I don't think it's not the biggest telco provider in UK. It's like one of the tier 3 or 4s. An interesting thing that we learned was we were talking about the network providers is that as you get up to the top 2 or 3, they're starting to working with publishers and other types of people that have really premium ad units. Whereas you get down to the 3 or 4 telco providers, and they're much more open and willing to allow ads. I think one of the stats one of the guys said last week was that on one of the tier 3 or tier 4 providers, they will in-app message their users on the phone anywhere up to 15 to 20 times a day with ad messages throughout the text, which I thought was kind of an interesting stat. Why do we care? We care because we're in the case of monetizing. Like, we care about this, right? So everybody in here that raised your hand, you have ad blockers. Shame on you.
Oh, you said raise your hand if you have ad blockers.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't have one, but I like ads. All right, cool. So what is the industry doing, right? So we have all these things going on. Consumers care about privacy. They kind of care about the user experience. There's some things that we've seen interesting happening. What we're seeing is publishers, we kind of call it the war on ad blockers, right? So you might see this now. If you do have an ad blocker turned on either on your desktop or mobile, and you go to a Forbes, they won't let you look. They won't let you look at their content. Wired is kind of doing the same type of model. Guardian also is one of the companies that went out there and did the same thing. Industry white labeling. So this is another interesting thing that we've seen with some. Does anybody know who this company is? Adblocker Plus. Yeah. Do you know about them? Raise your hand. Who knows about them?
I don't know about the company, but I use it.
You use it. So do you think it's a true ad blocker?
Seems to work.
Seems to work.
Yeah.
How do you think they're making money?
30% of CPM they ask.
And if you want to have acceptable ads, you have to join their network. So they will certify different companies, 30% CPM. So what do you see? So even though they're an ad blocker, they're not an ad blocker. They're a monetization provider, right? So even this company, which was one of the first ones out there, like you can get your ads seen, but you have to pay them to play. They by far, in the individual ad blocker platforms, they have probably the most market share right now. Another interesting thing that we're seeing is alliances are forming. I do think this is kind of a funny stat because we are talking about Sweden, which isn't a huge market. But what is interesting, what is huge, is if you look, about 90% of Sweden's publishers, 20, have collectively agreed to block ad blockers, right? And so they're going at it as a kind of consortium level. They're coming at it from a publisher, putting together the kind of the force of them to work together towards making it better for the consumers. And I do think these types of things are good because whenever you have anybody that cares as much about audience, it's going to kind of get a better experience for the user, which is what we all care about at the end of the day. Premium ads, I think these things are getting pretty aggressive. You'll start to see them all over the website, right? You'll see full page takeovers. They'll start trying to push these premium ads on people and sell those out. We do get a lot more of these. I do find these a lot more annoying myself, but we're starting to see these more and more. Native content. We use native content, native advertising quite a bit. Native content actually is pretty good as well. That's kind of having, native content ads could be seen as within Facebook. You have native experience there. You have some of the other publishers. If you have any of their apps, CNN, Fox, whatever it is that you might watch, Seattle Times, New York Times, they have their own kind of premium native experience. And then also the walled gardens, right? So, we see a lot of people using the walled gardens. I call them walled gardens. We call them walled gardens simply because you can run with them, but you can't really pull the data out of them, and you kind of get what they will tell you, right? If you want to run campaigns, they'll tell you what the performance is, and that's kind of what you get. You can't use some sort of third-party software to kind of track and measure that. But they all have different ad units, right? So Snapchat, we partner with Snapchat. We see a ton of expansion coming from Snapchat. So if people are not on Snapchat here, not thinking about how to use Snapchat, you should, because it's going to be the next big platform. They've already taken over Twitter with the monthly active users. It's a way that people want to get to the millennials. I'd do that. WeChat, if you're doing international stuff, right? We use WeChat, Line, Kakao. if you're in Korea, Baidu, a lot of these different platforms are starting to have their own different types of monetization and ad units. And if you're looking to move beyond just the US and kind of Europe, start getting to Southeast Asia, we advertise on these platforms with a lot of good performance. I do think, has everybody heard about the lean ad standards from the IAB? These are good things, especially if you are a publisher or if you are somebody that actually has content, has users that you're working. So these standards are what the IAB put forth as kind of their guiding principles for what publishers and what different types of providers should have. So it's basically light, encrypted, giving people ad choices, and they're non-invasive, right? So if you have these types of standards in there, the IAB will actually help you do promotion and help put you as a good publisher, good advertiser. Another one we've seen kind of shape up is the IAB deal. So this is kind of their, which I think is pretty interesting. So the IAB has actually gone out and they're working with publishers and content providers saying, look, if you want to block ad providers, so we showed you that premium experience, we're like, hey, you have an ad blocker turned on, you can't do this. They've actually gone out and built an SDK, and they've built all the tools for you as a publisher or somebody to go out and actually block the ad blockers. So if you have site content or if you have things like that, you have premium content, you can actually block them using the IAB's SDK, which is pretty cool. It's one of the first times I've actually put forth like coding standards to help you. The Google AMP, this is something that we've seen. I'm very interested about this just because they launched this about 6-7 months ago now. These are the accelerated mobile pages. Do people use these that are doing mobile in here? Raise the hands. 1, 2, good. You guys should all look into it. Google AMP is a great way for accelerated mobile pages. You basically get your pages certified by Google, so they will show up quicker in the mobile results. And not only will they show up quicker, they push AMP accelerated pages before other ones. You can actually look at them yourself if you go on your web and you search Google on your mobile device. You'll see they have a little icon there. But this is a really good project. We've pushed all of our ads to AMP certified to increase our conversions 25 to 30% across the board. So Google's doing a lot right now as well. The other thing too is like this is not a stupid industry. Like people are pretty smart, right? I mean, affiliates, advertisers, it's going to be always a cat and mouse, right? So we are also seeing people are trying to figure out ways to beat them, get around them, and so it's one of these things where the more you try to block ads, the smarter to get about avoiding the blocking, right? So there's things that are coming out there. I think more things will change as well. IAB Ad Blocking Working Group. This is a group that we kind of watch. We're part of this group as well. Tune is. Along with all these different, you can see on the side you have trade bodies, you have buyers, media owners, mobile, ad tech, right? So these are all groups that are working in the ad tech space that are trying to help push forth ad blocking and make sure that it's not something that becomes prevalent. Are you guys ready to get smart? You're a quiet crowd. You're not though. You got good questions. Anybody else have any questions before I start? Who's the artist tonight that's playing? Is everybody excited about Snoop Dogg? I am. Sipping on gin and juice.
Is there a way to block the ad blockers that are blocking the ad blockers?
Block the ad blockers that are blocking the ad blockers. I do not know.
Like the Forbes.
Like how to block Forbes, who's trying to block the ad blocker? I don't think so. It's Forbes. Yeah. Who in here doesn't know who Forbes is? Their brand, their brand reputation alone will get them there. But I don't know. It's a good question. I can dig into it. Yeah, you have a question? Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're completely different. So he's asking about Lion, Kakao, some of the different markets. So Tune, we have 9 offices worldwide, from Seattle, San Fran, New York, Berlin, Tel Aviv, South Korea, Seoul, Japan. We also have in New Delhi. So we run ads across the world. And a lot of those different platforms, we're doing different things, testing out different premium. They all have their own, you can buy it like a CPM level or you can buy some of the, but we do a lot of the direct purchases and they're different experience of, they do a lot of content distribution, right? So WeChat, Line, not only do they have the experience where people are talking, but they also are a pretty smart company in the sense that they know what people are talking about. When they have group chats, they actually are looking through what people's conversations. And so they can deliver to them different types. So we actually do premium content in those countries. We typically do lead generation, trying to get leads from them, just trying to get an understanding of what's the performance. And we get really good conversion rates there. Simply because the content, content over there, people want to learn more. Different thing about those audiences there is that we do get good conversion rates. That's on a whole basis. You get a lot more eyeballs. Right? I mean, you're looking at India, 1.2 billion people. I think 70% of the people there use WhatsApp. So you have a lot more audience. So you get lower conversion rates in general, but we get higher quality leads from the stuff that we do there. Any other questions? Okay, so we're going to get smart. Mobile ad blocking. We did a report. We surveyed 4,000 smartphone owners. We studied 1.3 billion mobile app installs. That was from our own customer data set. And we included 150 million over 7 months. So we did this big report. You can get, I'll give you some preview of it, but you can download the whole thing as I mentioned. Interesting thing that we also noticed is that back here in 2005 is when ad blocking just kind of started to be the first point of interest. It got really, 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 really small. And then down here it also got really big. Does anybody know what happened kind of out here in the far right-hand side? Anybody remember?
2015?
Yep, that's last year. Ad blocking, it got a big rise because people started talking about it. It made Howard Stern was talking about it, right? It made some political debates. Some of the people, some people in the Congress in the U.S. started talking about it, and then it became this massive thing, which is when I kind of always saw this big trend happen. That was about 2015, but we had a big lull for a long time. You guys saw this stat, but as of January, 25% of mobile users in the US, UK have installed a browser that can block ads. If we looked at that and we projected it out from Q2 2015, by 2017, in theory, you could have 80% of mobile users could have some sort of ad blocking technology on their phones. Interesting thing we also saw is that it used to be techies that would block ads a lot more, simply because people in the tech space were smart. Like, you know, we know what people do with the data. But it's definitely become something where you see now fashion, science, entertainment, comics, right? Gaming has always been kind of one of the tech areas. But we're starting to see that it's not just techies anymore. That's actually starting to progress kind of more mainstream. Men tend to block ads a little more women. Nothing significant, but I just like to throw this one out there. I have a theory, simply because I know how much my wife likes to shop, and I know she wants ads that are targeted to her, so I think that's why she doesn't use them. Android users tend to block a little more than iOS. This is kind of typical what we've seen. Typically, Android users are also techie, so we know that they kind of have more of a tech mind sometimes than the iOS. Interesting thing that I think is that mobile ad blocking, kind of to me in a way, kind of doesn't really hardly matter, but I think that the limit ad tracking is something else that is much more important. Does everybody know what the limit ad tracking is? A little bit different than ad blockers. So two versions, you have limit ad tracking. Limit ad tracking is if I go into my Android or if I go into my iOS and I go down to that setting that says limit ad tracking, I'm blocking that at the device level, right? So those are Google and Apple certified products built into the OS. You can see the limit ad blocker. It can do app, where it works, mobile web, ads, better user experience. Limit ad tracking is in the settings. It can block mobile apps. It blocks most traffic. It's for privacy. The interesting thing there is that we know that about 90% of our time on mobile devices is spent in apps and not in the mobile web, right? So typically everybody in this room, you guys probably have 5 or 8 apps, 2 of which are probably Facebook, 2 of which are probably Google, 1 is email, and maybe 1 or 2 are probably games or something like that, right? So the limit ad tracking feature actually in itself has more to disrupt the industry than the ad blocking software that we see. We kind of know because people blocking ads, they want privacy. This is some survey data that we had for the Android users. You can see on here, Android users and iOS should be allowed to collect data versus I've installed an ad blocking app on my phone, right? So if you look at yes, no, you can kind of see that the reason they want block ads is pretty much a lot of times for privacy.
Do you have data on what percentage of people have that setting turned on?
For LAT?
Yeah.
We do, and it's actually in the report. We do have that for users that run through our customers' platforms where we can see it turned on. So we do have a sample size. We have, you know, statistically, I think we say we have like over 60% of the largest advertisers use the Tune platforms. So we have a somewhat sample size of that, but we don't have it all.
Okay.
But we do know if they're running through our platform stack. And that's one of the things that we have in there. Are ad blockers a fad? I kind of think so, just because I think that if we look at what's going to happen, so let's go down the premium route. Let's say, okay, great, ad blockers are fad. These premium content sites, they can block it, and they're going to get back the money revenue that they lose, right? The interesting thing is that how much would you pay to block ads in your apps? 1 day a week, $1 a week, $1 a month, $1 a year? People are willing to pay nothing. People don't want to pay, right? So this premium thing where it's like, hey, I see that you're not a user, or you're using ad blocking software, like why don't you sign up? Like how many people here pay for a CNN or a Forbes? How many? Anybody? Nobody. One? One. Confirmed. This is confirmed. If we looked at that and looked at what kind of revenue that would generate, consumers are willing to pay just 9% of the total revenue that mobile publishers actually bring in from advertising. So that model won't work, right? So if we think of the ways what's going to happen, that model where you're going to have premium content, it's just not going to work. This is an interesting stat as well that we got. So main reason for ad blocking to block all ads, the 18 to 24 to block all type ads, that's the age range. So over 53%, it was above 53% for that group of people, so millennials, basically. If you look at the baby boomers down here, protect my privacy, it was higher there than in the other group at 16%, right? So if you think about this, experience, privacy are the two big reasons that people do this. The main reason that people switched off of ad blocking software we found was the biggest one was kind of about a 6 switched off ad blocker because they couldn't see access to content. So it does work if you do. So if you do see an ad blocker on, you're probably not going to be able to get them to turn or to pay you for premium content, but you probably could get them to turn it off. This is another stat in here. By the way, everybody can get these slides, so you can dig them. My email's in there. If you have questions, please feel free to ask. But another interesting stat was that half would turn off their ad blocker in this information right here if they were just asked to do it, right? And so one of the things that we're seeing a lot of people do as well is just asking people to turn it off if they come to the site, which if you go back to the IAB standards, they will give you the way, the details you need to figure out how you could do that.
Forbes is not asking though, right? That's forcing.
Yeah, I mean, Forbes is forcing. Like, you can't look at their content unless, yeah, put an ad blocker on, go try and hit Forbes.com, see what happens.
Do you think the hardware, back to the hardware conversation, like the phone itself, like,
yeah.
like Amazon launched a Kindle
Yep.
that's $50. One of my kids bought one. I thought, well, how's this thing gonna be $50? Well, now I know, because you have to accept the ad experience that they're giving you. So is that going to be a
trend?
A potential trend. The other question I had was like Hulu launched a pay
premium,
$11.99 a month, and I jumped on it the first day. But I saw a lot of articles saying this is a very poor strategic decision for them because their advertisers are not going to be happy. So is there, at that level, do you see that being sustainable? I mean, if everyone took Hulu at $11.99, would they be fine to have no commercials?
Yeah. No, I don't think it's sustainable because the amount of, going back to the thought, like there's not enough revenue in this industry to pay the companies that make money if we had that with ad blocking. If ad blocking was prevalent, none of the companies would have companies. Two, I think you see 3 tiers, right? You see, if you look at kind of the way it works, you have the hardware providers. So you have Google, Apple. They both have the LAT, so limited ad tracking. I think the amount, you'd ask a question, I think it's about like a 25% is the number I want to say of the people that have turned on limit ad tracking. Who in here has turned on limit ad tracking? Anybody? You turned on everything. You have to, yeah. Anybody else?
I've turned it on.
So 2, so sample size here, much smaller, pretty techie group here, smart. But I think that the hardware providers will be one that do it. I do think that in all these models, they're just doing it so that they can figure out how they can get it for themselves, and then
Google doesn't want to do it.
Oh yeah, Google doesn't want to do it, and Apple. Even if you look at Apple's doing now, like they're moving away from it as well. I mean, like 4 weeks ago at the Apple conference, they announced that the Apple Store will now start to have ads in it. You're guaranteed they're not going to block those ads, right? So there's an experience that you can't really be a hypocrite about it. So I don't think it'll last. I do think that it's good to be cognizant of it and to know kind of what the industry is doing. Like I said, we follow all these boards, all these standards. Like the best thing always to do is educate yourself. So that's why we're talking about it today. But and then you think down to the content producers, right? The content producers, whether it's a Hulu and Netflix, all these different companies are trying to figure out kind of what the balance is, right? But I guarantee they will all have ad units across the board at all times, right?
So Hulu might be taking the 25% of people that want to turn that on and saying, hey, we can get $11.99 out of these guys, but we know that the other bulk is going to still do the normal subscription.
Yeah, probably normal subscription, right? If you look at Netflix, you'll start. I think you'll probably start to see, especially as a lot of these providers have different kind of premium packages, you'll start to see them all start to compete as well, right? I mean, we only have so much time in a day. Right, and your example was, your kids, you want to be able to watch TV. I mean, I watched some shows the other day on my son, and does anybody watch any kid shows these days and like see how much advertising is in those things? I mean, you know where it starts. So I don't think it'll change. I think it'll just kind of evolve as it goes. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so I guess three questions for you. You're talking about kid shows. What
Yeah.
do you think about YouTube Kids?
The kids, like the influencers?
No, I mean they have a specific kids channel, and most of the content is actually technically editorial content that's user generated.
Yep. I mean, yeah, I think that is in YouTube influencer marketing is a huge segment. A lot of people we see that do marketing is through influencer marketing. My son likes to watch Chase's Corner, and that's exactly what it is. This kid's got 10 million followers, and every day he's showing toys. And
Baby Alive.
yeah, right. He's showing toys, and I want this, I want this. The good news is like I do like what Google's done there is that they actually are making sure that the content is kid approved. Like I'm not worried that there's some freak that's talking to my son. Like he's actually his son going through it. So I think influencer marketing is huge.
Two other questions. Brave just raised $4.5 million today. So if you guys are familiar, Brave is an ad blocking browser that's launching here in the U.S. So between Shine and Brave, where they're blocking it on the carrier level and browser level, where do you see that? Where do you see that from like in the next 12 months?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that'll work. I mean, think about Brave. I've heard about it. I knew what they were doing, but how many people in here use the mobile web a lot? Raise your hand. Do you use Google Chrome?
Yeah.
Chrome, Firefox, Windows Internet Explorer,
Probably Safari.
right? And so if
Dolphin.
yeah, Mozilla, right? So if you think about it, I mean, again, going back to the mobile web, we know that 90% of your time is spent in mobile apps. I think anything that happens in the mobile will happen in the app level that'll make the most significance. I don't think there's enough time spent surfing on the mobile web today that'll make a big impact. In addition to that, the things that Google's starting to do, right now they're starting to do more search, Apple too, right? When you're starting to do internet searches and you're typing in, you can actually start to search for content within apps. So we used to have deferred deep linking. Does everybody know what deferred deep linking is? The ability for you to push somebody to a place in an app for content. If they don't have that content, they will take you to the App Store to let you download it, and then they will push you to the content, right? So it's the ability for them to try and drive you to a certain place. Basically, it was mirroring search for an app experience, whereas now they have the ability to search the app and actually push you to a certain content page. So I think those types of things will be good.
And then I guess the last question I
Yeah.
have is, so you talk, so gaming CPMs are tremendously more expensive.
Yep.
Right. And you talk maybe the gaming blocking, and then also with Pokemon Go, what we're seeing is, well, they've sponsored Pokespots.
Yep.
And brands are paying upwards of several $1 million for these. So,
Totally.
So what do you see in terms of trends there?
Yeah, I mean, I think Pokemon Go taught us that there still can be virality in games, right? You think of like the other games. If you think of the gaming block, I only have 2 minutes. I'm going to answer this question, then I'll quickly summarize. I have more slides you guys know, but I think if you think about gaming, it's so expensive is because one, it's the most dominant market out there, and the players that are in it have the biggest budgets out there. Wargaming, Supercell, all those. I think two, if you look at Pokemon Go, it gives you the ability where like a brand, Nintendo, can still have and use its brand assets to make themselves relevant, right? They were not relevant 2 months ago. But what they did learn as well is that if you read last week, Nintendo said that they're not going to see a significant impact to their bottom line based on Pokemon Go. And I think what that shows them as well is that they didn't have the right people in the room thinking about their monetization strategy. Because yes, you can do Pokestops and do things, but I play Pokemon Go. I'm not great, but Nate, my coworker's laughing at me because I go around and I'm always doing this. My son loves it. But they didn't do a good job monetizing it, and they can do a lot more, whether it's branded stops, branded content. I think they'll pick that up first, but I think gaming amongst everything, that's always going to be one of the biggest things on the phone. I think that they'll do well. I think they didn't do a good job on the outset, but I do think gaming will continue to be a massive area, and I think that we'll continue to see CPMs in the high level in gaming industries. All the other apps are typically utilitarian, right? I use Chase, or I use Bank of America, or I use Expedia or Alaska Airlines, but it's typically for some sort of small thing, whereas gaming and things like that are typically something I do constantly. 5 key learnings. There are a lot of people who are not happy with the current edge advertising. Ad blocking, who's doing it, mobile ad blocking, revenue placement. What do advertisers do? One, Educate yourself, leverage other channels. I'm not going to fly through these, my time's up, but I'm happy to chat with you outside of this room if you want. Educate yourself. Social's good, content marketing is good, video has never been hotter. We do a ton with video, and we're getting some of the best response rates we see. Influencer marketing, YouTube, kids channels like that. App Store optimization is super important, especially with all the changes that they're doing, along with the long forgotten email. Like, email is actually still pretty effective. And then analytics, right? You actually do have the ability in your software and in whatever you're tracking it with to actually build cohorts, groups of people to see who is potentially blocking your ads. So you can get, I did this speech 3 weeks ago in Toronto at the Performance Marketing Summit there. A guy in the room had like 30% of his traffic blocked from mobile. And we were just talking about ways that he could try and see that and get around it. Advertisers are adapt. You know, I should make sure that you're leveraging the new options. More are coming. We'll continue to see this. Native advertising is growing. We use it at Tune. My time is up. Patience, the pendulum swinging. Patience, the pendulum swinging. I'm getting cut off here. App relationship. Last important slide, part of our thing. On average, people are downloading 2.3 apps per person per month. 25% of respondents we had in the survey failed to download an app in 2016, which means that if you're not in the app game, you should be thinking about the app game or thinking about how you can partner with people that are in the app game, because this will be your easiest way for success. My name is Jonah-Kai. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Thank you for coming. Happy ASE.